Hi, my name is Dr. Tenesha Ward with Infinity Wellness Center, and our focus this month is on mold and mycotoxin toxicity. And I'm going to get real vulnerable here and share my own family's mold journey, why we went down this path looking for mold, what symptoms we had, what we did to remediate it, how it really kind of shocked me. And I had a lot of mom guilt over what was going on with our body and our family. So I'm going to share my screen and go over our blog, which is published now on our website at austinholisticdoctor.com. So last fall, so fall of 2021, I started working with a functional medicine doctor who was a friend of mine because I was having a hard time losing about 25 pounds that I wanted to lose. And I said, okay, there has to be something missing. I'm doing all the right things. I'm eating paleo, I'm working out. I've hired 2 different trainers. One of them put me through a whole keto program, which I lost like 3 or 4 pounds, where other people were losing like 20 to 30 in the same amount of time. Like something's wrong. So I started working with a functional medicine doctor who practices like I do, who immediately picked up on, through muscle testing, mold toxicity. He said, your lymph is congested, you're inflamed, and your body can break down fat, but it can't get rid of it because the lymph system is stressed, it's toxic. There's something in your system, we need to run some tests. So he recommended I run a couple different tests. One of them was a mycotoxin test, which we'll go over. In the interim of waiting for these test results with him, and I gave him a little resistance. I'm like, I don't think so. We've only been in this house about 2.5 years. There's no mold in our house. We've never had a leak, et cetera, right? Thinking through that, like nothing's leaking, we're fine. It can't be mold, but I ran it anyway. In the interim of waiting for those test results, in my bathroom, there's this little half wall between the shower and the bathtub. And I noticed one day that the paint was bubbled up. So I touched it. I'm like, oh, this isn't good. And the drywall just kind of crumbled. And I was like, oh no, it's wet in there. So what was happening was there was a leak behind the tub that was going into this half wall. That wasn't even the most toxic area of our house. I brought out an inspector, Tim, Toolman Mold Inspections with Tim Taylor. Yes, it's a play off the 80s show of Tim the Toolman. He did a test of our house. And we found, and this is important, I want you to remember these, we found lots of toxic mold levels. One of them was aspergillus, one was penicillium, and this one's here in the 3000s, cladosporium. It literally said on my test results that the house is inhabitable. We should not be living in there, the toxic levels. The exact line was, yeah, the house is not inhabitable because it had such a high level. So this was the house levels, the numbers of mold in our house. Mold in your environment will cause mycotoxins in your body. Here's my mycotoxin test. I had ochratoxin A, pretty toxic level from aspergillus. Again, the only symptom, I felt good, I had energy, I slept well, I could work out, my brain is sharp, I don't have any of the brain fog. Tim's wife, the inspector, they moved into a really an apartment that was really full of mold, and she had chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia type stuff. She got really, really sick to the point of bedridden, which is why he's doing this as a career. So I didn't have those. I had those types of symptoms when I had Lyme disease and Epstein-Barr virus and Hashimoto's in my past, autoimmune disorders, but I didn't have them now. So again, I'm kind of in disbelief at this point. Well, I'm not sick enough. I have patients that come into my office with this level of mold and they're sick. They have headaches, they have joint pain, they're tired. I just didn't have that. So again, I'm kind of in disbelief that we're about to go into this mold remediation without a lot of symptoms. But again, it matches. The aspergillus is in our house. The mycotoxin I had is from aspergillus. It made perfect sense. Also ran my daughter's test. My 6-year-old daughter at the time, she's 7 now. Multiple mold species have citrinin. That's a big one. And then ochratoxin A, even worse than mine. She had this one here from penicillium, but it wasn't a toxic level. She complained of headaches at night, and her bedroom was near the AC return. So I think it's worth noting, we found mold in the bathroom, in that spot that I talked about with the half wall, but Tim came in and spent, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours at my house, maybe longer. He also found mold, black mold behind my dishwasher. We actually have pictures of it. It's fuzzy. What's interesting is when we closed on our house, they did find a leak behind the dishwasher that they repaired. Now, looking back, they repaired it in June, right before we moved in, where when the house was empty and the air conditioning, the temperature was up really, really high. So chances are it was not aired out properly. It was not, they didn't bring in the big fans to pull all the moisture out of the drywall, and it just sat there over the last 2.5 years and just grew. So that's the second spot they found mold. The third spot was our air conditioning unit, the plenum, which is the air that goes back in, the air return, full of mold. We had to replace the whole AC unit. And that AC return unit was right next to my daughter's bedroom. So now looking back, I absolutely believe that she had headaches from the mold. And we were just really, really lucky that we found it from this doctor finding it, versus we could have gone 3, 5, 10 more years and had all of these symptoms. So the ERMI test, I want to go over the ERMI test that was run by Tim Taylor, is this test here, and it's a Swifter. We Swifted dust in our house to find this. And then the test that we ran on our bodies was Great Plains Labs, a mycotoxin test. We offer that in our office. A lot of the symptoms that are associated with mold toxicity: headaches, joint pain and inflammation, GI issues, ADD, ADHD, brain symptoms, brain fog, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, neurological type pain, depression, anxiety, leaky gut issues, autoimmunity, and histamine intolerances, where you puff up if you're exposed to a lot of histamine, you get real inflamed. I mean, I could have had some of the histamine intolerances. I didn't necessarily look puffy, I was just heavier. So we found this. And again, I had a lot of these symptoms when I had Lyme disease, and a lot of these symptoms overlap with Lyme disease. Again, didn't have a lot of these now. So I'm thinking it can't be. But now if I get a negative Lyme test with a patient with these symptoms, I immediately think mold. And what's interesting is a lot of my Lyme disease patients have had mold exposures. So what I don't know is, because they have Lyme disease, is their immune system weakened and they're more reactive to the mold and it stays in their body? Could be. Or because they had mold in their body, is their immune system down when they get bit by a tick and exposed to Lyme, and that sets up shop, makes them a host? Maybe. All of that's possible. Also, we look at genetics. How well of a detoxer are you? And I know that my daughter and I have a lot of genetic defects in our detox pathways. We're poor, what they call methylators. We don't detox things very well. Could be why the mold built up in our system. So what did I do from here? We moved out of the house. We stayed in Airbnb while the remodel went down, which was a lot to do at the holidays. We removed foods that have a lot of mycotoxins in them. Coffee is one of them. Certain cereals can have them. Here are the supplements that I use to detox our body. Trisomal glutathione, carboxy, which is a binder from Cellcore. It's a powder. Biotoxin binder, it's a capsule. Binders bind to toxins and remove them from your body. These are specific to toxic molds. I have a sauna blanket that I'd spend 30 minutes 2 to 3 times a week in. Not necessarily recommended for kids because it gets pretty hot. A chi machine, you can find that on Amazon. It kind of shakes you lay on the ground, it shakes your ankles to get your lymph moving. Lymphatic massages, and then glutathione IVs. That's really what we focused on for the mold. Of course, I take other supplements like adrenal support and vitamin D and other things, but this is specifically what we did for the mold. And then we took our retest in 3 to 6 months and we were mold free. I've lost over 30 pounds without doing anything different to my diet than taking these detox supplements, opening up my drainage pathways and taking binders. That's it. My body was probably so inflamed, it was breaking down the fat through my workouts and through eating paleo. It just couldn't flush the fat through our lymph system, right? That's how we get rid of it. It dumps into our GI tract, or it comes out through the lymph. I'm just thinking my body was so congested with the mold toxins of the inflammation, it wouldn't detox it. So if you're one of these medical mysteries where you're like, I'm doing everything right and I have some of these symptoms, it could be mold. I'm finding more and more in Central Texas, it's a bigger deal and it's a core underlying cause and core root issue for way more issues like anxiety, like autoimmunity, like fibromyalgia type pain than I even knew about. I have learned way more about mold in this last year than I've ever wanted to. Now, the good news is we moved into a house built in the late 90s and it needed a remodel anyway. So the good news is this was our bathroom before. Oh, this was the half wall. On the other side of that is what I touched and it crumbled. You can see my little Epsom salt bath there. I was already doing Epsom salt baths. We did more of those. There's our new bathroom. It was so much better. I got rid of anything that can have mold in it. I was like, nothing in this bathroom is going to have drywall or wood. It is all going to be, you know, tile and everything that can't leak through. So again, the good news is we got our dream bathroom. The bad news is, you know, our health was affected to an extent from the mold. Fortunately, we weren't debilitated. I know patients who have such bad anxiety from mold toxicity that they can't sleep through a night and they get stuck in this bad feedback loop of anxiety and insomnia and fatigue. Fortunately, I really contributed to all the other supplements and the clean eating and the other toxins we don't have in our environment in our house to where we could manage this enough to be functional. But again, I'm so grateful that this churned up when it did, because we could have gone another 3 or 5 or 10 years and had a chronic illness and major symptoms that would have taken us a really long time to track down. So hopefully this story helps a little bit. You can read in more detail about the ERMI test, the mycotoxin test on our blog. And yeah, let us know if you think this is you and it's something we could help you uncover and detox, because we've had way more experience with it than I have ever wanted. Again, thanks for listening. Dr. Tenesha Ward with Infinity Wellness Center.